Welcome to the ATP Project. You're with your host, Steve and Matt. Matt's already laughing already. What are you laughing about?
Oh, yeah, I'm just an idiot. Let's go.
No, that's all right. That's all right. We're just having a bit of a joke beforehand, as we normally do. And today we've got an absolutely fascinating one, aren't we? We're going to be talking about neurophysics.
Yeah, neurophysics and somatopsychology and even the history of psychology as opposed to how it's been hijacked away from what it was, which was the functioning of us in response to psychological stimulus, not just us talking about what happened and then dealing it with our brain. So psychology used to do a lot more in regards to the soma, which is the body.
Yes.
So now it's just gone straight to the brain and everyone forgets about the body. So today we're going to talk a lot more about, instead of all head down approach to everything, we're going to talk about the foot up. We're going to talk about how our body can actually go back and communicate with our brain, how we think we can trick our brain, and which we definitely can, how we think our imagination can create our reality. We're going to talk about how we think we can control everything through intensity and aggression and hustling and grinding. Think we can achieve all those sort of things, supplementations and foods. There's also the need for us to go back and have a good look at our body, reset, recalibrate, and get a better understanding of maybe the handbrakes that are occurring because of our posture and that sort of stuff. So we could use flash words like somatopsychology and neurophysics and tremor therapy and chaos theory, all that sort of stuff we're going to talk about, but we're going to break it right down because I've actually experienced it now. So I've been through a week of tremor therapy at the Neurophysics Institute with Ken Ware, and I'm going to give you my perception of it. Okay. Because when you've been through it and you've experienced it, it's a hell of a lot different to what you see on YouTube. It's a lot different to what I thought it was going to be like when I went there. So I really want to talk about that because there's tricks and techniques that everyone can learn, and there's other things that you can take it to the next level if you're really interested.
Well, amazingly you say that, because if you open up Gray's Anatomy, the textbook, you say, how do you move a muscle? You go, okay, right, you send an action potential down a nerve, and it goes to your, in this case, hand, and you clench your hand. And I'm consciously doing that. Yeah. So that's how the nervous system works. Yeah. It just does that. And if I throw a pen at Vanessa there, he'll catch it low. He'll react, and he'll react in about a quarter of a second and catch a pen. Yeah. And that's how it works, isn't it?
Yeah. So what about if I put my hand on a hot plate? And if I got to wait for my brain to assess the heat and then send a signal back to my hand to move it, by then I've cooked it. So we have our reactions through our body are a lot faster. Do you know the numbers, Steve?
Yes, I do know the numbers. Quarter of a second or 0.25 a second to catch a pen. But if you touch a hot plate, 0.15 of a second.
Exactly.
So that's quicker than going, like that's room temperature, but I can now feel that as being, coolish, that drink. Yep. So that's gone to my brain. If I touch a hot plate, my hand moves before my brain has reacted. So what's going on there? That's weird, isn't it?
So we got these survival nervous systems. So basically we can simplify this thing right down because you're either in thrive mode or survive mode. Yeah. Okay, so we have this survival innate defense mechanisms. We talk about it all the time in regards to mucosal immunity and injury and inflammation and all that sort of stuff, how we can have processes in our body that are keeping us in the adrenal mode or the stress mode or what we call the sympathetic nervous system, and that allows us to survive the day.
Correct.
Long-term maintenance, reproduction, repair, none of that matters. Shagging for fun and all that sort of stuff, sleeping for recovery, that sort of stuff does not matter if you don't survive the day. So our body has a hierarchy in the sense that our body has the ability to pick up stresses and signals that could be life-threatening and react immediately without needing our brain to do it. Yet, when we go to the gym and when we go and do all these different things, we're trying to create a muscle-mind connection. We're trying to get our mind to create these things. Yes. Now, our body's already done it. It's already reacted. By the time our brain can come through, if there's a stress signal, if there's a stress stimulus coming through, if there's a perceived stress, if there's an ongoing underlying stress, that can actually have your body change. It'll have your whole body change, including your mind. But we can trick our mind into thinking, okay, no, I've assessed this situation and it's not stressful for me. Yes. Or it's not life-threatening. So I can trick my brain into thinking, I can do this, it's no problem, I'm safe. Yes. But we got to understand that if you don't understand the changes that are occurring in your body when you do that, then how do you know when your body is in that survive mode? A good example, the best example I can give is for me with public speaking.
Ah, yes.
So, because if I explain this, it might make people understand a little bit. So, I have a massive fear of public speaking. Okay, so I hate standing in front of crowds. The podcast, even I'll often leave one of these podcasts and I'll be drenched with sweat, and I'll have the tension in through the traps.
Yeah.
I'll have headachy. I'll be feeling exhausted.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't remember the event. A real weird thing happens to me in crowds where I dissociate. So part of my sympathetic nervous system, my stress response in my body, involves perspiration, shallow breathing. My traps will tense up and my shoulders will roll forward. My forehead, I get a frown on my forehead.
Yep.
I roll onto the balls of my feet and I grab onto the ground with my toes.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
I've learnt this only because of my experience with Ken Ware, where he went through and we went and reassessed my body and found out what happens to me when I'm under stress. And this is what happens. So when I go through a seminar, I can trick my brain into thinking, I love this. This is fun.
Yes.
It's not scary. It's actually exciting.
Yeah.
I'm helping people. I'm not under attack. I'm there sharing information.
Yes.
So I can trick my brain and I can laugh and I can smile. I can have a joke. Meanwhile, I can be fully dissociated, meaning that it feels like totally like my head's not attached. I'm floating above my body.
Okay.
I feel massive amounts of perspiration. I do feel the shallow breathing and the heart going. I get flushed and that sort of stuff. This is all body stuff. Meanwhile, my brain, I'm fine. But my short-term memory, concentration span, close vision, all those things switch off, which is all part of my parasympathetic nervous system, the one that does rest and digest and meditation and that sort of stuff. So I take over my sympathetic nervous system. Sometimes I don't even remember the seminar. I don't really remember doing it. I run the whole thing on gut instincts, intuition, long-term memory, short-term memory, concentration span, close vision. That's why I can't use palm cards or anything like that, because my vision won't allow it. And for me, that's a big stress for me. That creates another stress, thinking, I can't remember what I was going to say next because my short-term memory shut down. So often these things happen in autopilot. No one would really know that I'm as anxious and nervous as I am.
Can I just pull you up on that one sec? Because you told me this about 15 minutes ago.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many seminars we've done together. I've known you for 20 years.
Yeah.
And I was shocked that you actually have that reaction to, look, I know, I get a bit worked up, better remember this, better remember that. But I don't go through what you go through. And I didn't know you went through what you went through. It was not obvious.
The back pain at the end of it, my lower back is killing, my traps are killing, my neck is really sore. I'm usually sweating like a pig and everyone wants to come up and have a cuddle and a photo. And I'm like, getting a bit anxious. But also too, while I'm in that sympathetic nervous system, your body does pick up on other stresses. My brain is actually looking for the horizon and trying to find an exit. I've actually scanned the room. I've scoped the room. I've picked up on the vibe of different sections, which ones are threatening, which ones are happy, where's my safe place. I'm trying to imagine what you're going to say next. I'm trying to predict all of these different things. And my brain's running on that. And meanwhile, I'm talking and presenting a seminar and running in a survival nervous system. Now, I've been doing that for years, and I thought I was getting better and better at these things because I'm finding it less stressful in my brain, but my physical manifestations haven't changed. They're still, and they're probably even getting worse and worse. And anyway, so what's interesting is I never really made these connections at all. I had no idea. Because what happens is you can trick yourself. Like you can trick your brain.
Yeah.
But if you don't understand your body and you're not listening to your body, you may have no idea that this thing's happening. So after 20 odd years of doing this sort of thing, my brain is getting better and better at understanding it's not stressful, it's not life-threatening. And I've tricked myself into thinking they can take it or leave it. I'm just here offering my service. And so I've tricked my brain into thinking I'm doing all this nice stuff. But my body has just been getting further and further out of whack. So I had an opportunity to go see Ken at Neurophysics Institute at Benogan. And what was interesting, I felt bad. I kept saying no originally because what Ken normally does is he gets people out of wheelchairs, he gets quadriplegics, he gets people really bad, people like with scoliosis about to get surgery and within 5 days,
of the spine.
He straightens up their spine within a few days and gets some people out of wheelchairs and walking and does amazing things with rehab. I was sitting there thinking I got no real problems, and even to the point that I didn't write anything on the form when I went in.
Right.
But really, in my mind, what I was thinking, I had a frozen shoulder. I needed a wrist reconstruction. I needed a knee reconstruction. I had massive problems with my feet. Everything was all on my left side. And then things had started migrating over to my right foot, my right elbow, and I was starting to go, I'm actually starting to get a little bit out of whack here.
Yeah.
But I didn't think they were that bad compared to the stuff that he normally treats. So I was a bit embarrassed to even mention that they were existing. So, but what was interesting, so I went in with Ken and just said, right, let's just go through this process. Then I'll come down.
See how it goes, yeah.
Yeah, it was really weird because I didn't feel like I deserved it or something like that, and I didn't feel like I needed it. And so it was a little bit of a shock for me to go in. But anyway, it was wild, man. It totally changed everything because I had no idea. I knew so little about myself before that week. I thought my brain could do anything. My brain and my mind power, I could control everything. I could create everything that I needed through my own brain, and that I could counsel myself, or I could meditate, or I could do all of these different things. But what I realised is I had posture. My body had been holding these defensive postures for so long, meaning, so what I was saying before when I do the seminars, and the traps lock in and the frown, stuff like that. So very simple stuff. When we started with Ken, he basically told me to just sit down on this chair and close my eyes and just touch my fingers together. Yep. And then
sort of like
just go through and then touch my nose and find my own nose with my finger. Like touch my fingers and touch my nose. Like seriously, they're my fingers, my nose. I should know where the bloody hell they are.
Yeah.
But what I could not even do, every time I shut my eyes, I would find myself frowning and my head would change. My head would turn to the left and go down. My traps would lock in and I would turn to that one side that my brain was dominant with.
Yes, okay.
And so for the first hour or something, I was sitting there, Ken was there trying to teach me how to close my eyes and not frown. And he's sitting there going, why are you frowning? Like, why are you doing that? I said, no, I'm thinking. And I found out. And I remember too, I used to work at some other places, and when I'd be studying and people would walk past and go, oh, what's the matter? What have you read? And I said, no, nothing. I'm studying, but I just realised I do everything with intensity. I do everything with a bit of angst, and I do it with a certain amount of aggression. But I'd meditate hard. Like I'd meditate like a beast. Like I could sit there and study like a crazy person with such intensity. And then I realised as I'm doing that sort of stuff, and I'm sitting at the desk, and while I'm frowning, the traps are coming in, I'm leaning forward, I'm on my toes, I'm digging my toes in. All of this sort of stuff day in, day out. And then on top of that, when I started getting out of my comfort zone, trying to start this business and things like that, there's a lot of stress, but you can't show it. No. You know, you got staff, you got people relying on you, you got to portray a certain image of health and vitality and that sort of stuff. So a lot of that I could trick my brain into, or I could at least trick people with photos on Instagram. No, you know what I mean? You know,
You're not the only one to do that.
You can create an imaginary world in your own mind. And like I say, your imagination does create your reality to a certain degree. Yeah. But I would find myself getting further and further into these defensive survival postures. And then what I didn't realise is when I went to the gym and that sort of stuff, oh man, I went to the gym because I hated myself because I ate so much, or I got overweight, or I spent too long in the office sitting down, or I'd paid for a membership and I hadn't had my chances to get there. So when I did go in and train, I did that with so much intensity and so much angst and so much aggression that I was constantly hurting myself and constantly suffering from injuries. And then I'm trying to rehabilitate these injuries, going through all this pain, trying to get a frozen shoulder to work and all that sort of stuff. So when I sat down with Ken and realised that even trying to push on a bench press, my traps would lock in first.
Right. So
and they're the antagonist muscles. I mean, what the hell were they going to do to help? So my posture and everything was so bad. As soon as I tried to concentrate, and I'll tell you what was wild, when you mentioned those reaction times, if we loaded up with weight and the weight would push against me, I could do it no worries.
Yes.
But when he took all the weight off, when I had no weight, I could not even move certain limbs. Like my left adductor and left hamstring, they've been passengers for years, just reacting to my right side just moving, and otherwise I'd fall over.
Okay.
Like I couldn't walk straight. I could not stand still. He tried to get a picture of me standing still, and I was constantly moving because I was constantly adjusting. My centre of gravity was so far out of whack, and the more I concentrated with my brain, the more clumsy I would become.
Yes.
Because as soon as I did that, the traps, my head moved forward, like I was saying, roll onto my feet, then all of a sudden I'm wobbly. Then my feet locking onto the ground, and I've had a lot of feet problems, you know?
Yes.
So what was really interesting is over the years, I looked at doing things like, you know, lots of different forms of meditation and body work, counselling and psychologies and that sort of stuff. I learnt techniques for meditation for grounding, you know, to try to ground. But, you know, I'd be sitting there in the yard getting my feet into the ground, imagining there's my energy going through my feet into the ground and grabbing hold of a boulder under the ground and driving all my energy in and finding my place on this earth and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But it was all my brain.
Yeah.
At no time did I ever stop and let my body go back and tell my brain what it was doing.
Exactly, amazing. And just so you know that the human body is got electricity flowing through it. And electricity, if you ever look at a plug, in Australia there's 3, and in America there's 3 too. There's 2 what they call alternating currents, and then you've got the bottom one, which is an earth. So most electrical items, except for a simple light or something, requires an earth.
Yeah.
And that's what you're talking about when you're grounding yourself.
Yeah.
So that's good. Now when you've got electric current flowing, you get electromagnetism occurring. Electric current produces a magnetism, and I believe that's part of the treatment as well, and part of the story as well, isn't it?
Yeah, well, this is a beautiful thing about it. Ken, who's the founder and the expert of this, he doesn't even bloody know, really. No one knows. I mean, we're there doing this stuff, talking about how does a flock of birds all move in unison when there is no hierarchy there. It's just they constantly move.
Yeah.
And we're talking about electromagnetic fields in that sense,
Yeah.
We talk about talking about all those sort of things, but Ken doesn't have the arrogance to go through and say he understands exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
It's basically just a series of observations and a technique that they're trialing. But I'll tell you what the craziest thing is. When I first started, I could not touch my fingers together and I couldn't do this. And then I shut my eyes and then basically center myself and just stop thinking, drop the frown and drop the traps and sit back and just experience what it feels like to be symmetrical. And then use that as a recalibration point.
Yeah.
And then what I found is if I could drop the survival posture and the defensive posture and get into my balanced mode where my center of gravity's balanced and I'm not driving my sympathetic nervous system by manifesting a posture of stress, all of a sudden things would start to balance. Even simple things, like on the first day there, he just got me down, we're trying to do the hamstring and the adductor stuff when, like I said, my left leg wasn't, it was just being a passenger. I remember doing the hamstring and he says, actually, that's nice and smooth. And I said, no, actually, I don't even think, I don't feel like my left leg even touched the pads when I really think about it. Yeah. And then he said, okay, we'll drive, lead with that left and just see. I could not move it.
Couldn't move it.
Same with the adductors. And it was the only way it could work is reacting to weight or reacting to my other leg. But when isolated, nothing. Could not even find it. And then what happens, I remember he was shaking my legs just trying to say, loosen up, let go. Stop trying to control everything. And then what happened, even the moving, shaking my legs, if he did if my brain was constantly trying to predict what pattern he was doing with my legs, and he kept changing it, and he kept getting mad because I'm not mad, he don't get mad, he's so zen. But he was saying, what are you doing? Just let it go, just relax.
Yeah.
And I'd do it, relax for like a couple of movements, and then my brain would predict the pattern, and I'd then try to do it. And he's like, no, just let it go. And he's just mixing it all. It took ages for me to be able to just remember how to run and swing my legs like a kid. Like we went back to just pretend you're a kid on a park bench and just move your legs without a care in the world. And, things like that, man, it was like a robot. And I was planning and strategizing a random path.
Exactly.
And that was all my brain. And it took me a good day for my body to actually get word in, you know. So nothing was going back from my body. It took that long for that to happen. And what was happening is you just get stuck. That was the only way I can describe it is I was stuck in my head. And the harder I tried, and I never forget there was another exercise where I had to do these, just these lat pull downs, but I had the unilateral ones so they could come down independently. So I shut my eyes and I get into my posture and I start my thing and I do it. And he stopped me halfway and said, do you feel straight? He said, do you feel like you're symmetrical? Do you feel like everything's even? And I was like, yeah, man, that feels pretty straight. And he's going, okay, well, keep your eyes closed while I straighten you. Man, it felt like he turned my head 45 degrees one way, my body 45 degrees another way, and at least shifted my arms by about a foot different. Yeah. And then I was going, bullshit, no way. There is no way. I said, you're just screwing with me now. Yeah. And he said, no, open your eyes, have a look. And so I opened my eyes and I'm perfectly symmetrical. Straight. And then he's going, okay, so close your eyes now. Imagine, feel that, set that point. This is you symmetrical. Now let's go back and do it. Now, the wildest thing about that is it wasn't, like seriously, I was there for 4 days. Well, I was pretty uncoordinated.
Yes.
So in the first day, I just couldn't. My body was not an important thing in my brain. There was no signals going back. I couldn't get it, and I'll explain what happened through the process. But by the end of that first day, I knew what straight felt like.
Yeah.
For the first time, and I knew what my survival posture was like.
Right.
So I worked out what it was that happens to me that knocks me out of whack. Now,
could I just pick? You said something before, which I want to talk about. I think this is very important.
Yeah.
Is that you said you needed to move, like a kid again.
Yeah.
Now, when you're a kid, I haven't been a kid for a long time, but when you're a kid and you go to school, what are you told to do in class?
Yeah, and sit up straight.
Sit up straight.
Yeah.
Sit still.
Yeah.
And most kids are fidgety, like they're moving a bit. Sorry for banging my ring on.
Yeah.
But my ring on my finger. Sorry, so I didn't bang my other ring. It was this ring, just so you know. So we keep the G rating going there. So you just move around like this, and you're a kid in class, and all of a sudden you're told not to do that.
Yeah.
For decades.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't move.
Exactly.
So
sit up straight and sit in a certain posture.
Yep.
In fact, let's hunch our shoulders over.
Yep.
And what about work? We're all taught to walk with purpose, and everyone will leave you alone. If you look like you're busy and you're walking with purpose, or if you're working with intensity, people leave you alone. If you look like you're having fun and you're relaxing, then people will attack you, thinking, man, you're not putting in enough effort.
Yeah.
I grew up watching my dad come home, bring work at home, and sit at the end of the dining room table, working with intensity and angst.
Yeah.
And he had the traps, he had the frown, and, we learn these sort of things. We learn these behaviours, or we acquire them through schooling and different structure. And same with work, we have all of these things where we've got to sit certain ways, do things certain ways, present a certain posture, so people know that we're not having fun.
You're not having fun.
So that we're right in amongst it,
Well, when I ran the college and I had staff and I'd hear them laughing downstairs, I'd think, the bloody slackers. And it took me years and years to figure out that was music to my ears.
Productivity is more important,
It's like happiness.
But what about the gym? There's so many people with the hate music going on. There's aggression. We've got to listen. There's all these noises that we're talking about, these electromagnetic fields. That noise and these signals coming from our body, they are still bioresonant frequencies. It's the same as music and that. And we can be... white noise is the worst thing apparently you can have, because it basically just overrides everything else. And a lot of these other doof beats and that sort of stuff, there's no way that our signals can come back to our body that way, because they're still running on those same sine waves or whatever it is. So
it's more than sine waves. You move. Sound is the movement of air particles pushed out by a speaker. The speakers, if you watch them in the gym when you're there next, they move like that, and they move air at a certain frequency that our ears perceive as music.
Yeah.
And that's so you're actually physically being assaulted by the music. And I know it sounds, assault is a big word, but you're being pushed around by music.
Yeah, exactly. So in the meantime, we've got signals coming back from our body trying to communicate with our brain. Now, what if you're also tough?
Yeah.
What if you're staunch? You got the traps going up, you're going with intensity. What if you're one of those people that are getting all that aggression before you do powerlifting? It's just like, rah, 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 you're trying to get all this intensity up. That's activating a survival nervous system, which will create a defensive posture if you let it. So this is a lot of the sort of stuff that I'm learning, that we need to actually be able to have tricks and techniques where our body can communicate back to our brain. We mentioned, the heat, where you put your hand on the thing, our body reacts. So when our body picks up on any sort of stress trigger, and remember, a definition of stress is anything that makes a change in your body.
Yeah.
Throughout our whole body, we release chemicals, we have electrical signals, of course, that change through electromagnetic frequencies, but there's also, on a chemical basis, there's changes that happen everywhere. I never forget when I first learned about this chemical called interleukin-6, which was an immune chemical. Well, I was taught it was an immune chemical. Yeah. So when I first learned about it, I was learning about mucosal immunity, and it was saying it's part of our innate inflammatory response from our immune system. And then basically showing that when we get a trigger, whatever a trigger is, we can't afford to wait to see what it is. That interleukin-6 is released to say there's a stress coming. And it's an immune signal. And then I remember reading another thing one day and said it's released from nerves. And I went, oh, hang on. And then they talked about it in the brain. And then acting like a neurotransmitter, like instantly triggering a stress reaction. And then I read another one about it coming out of the muscles when we train. And then I read another one. And then basically every cell of your body in response to stress can immediately release this thing. So we can have signals of these chemicals released from all over your bloody body.
Yeah.
And it basically will activate a survival response.
You want a scary there's a scary drug coming out called toxlizumab, which is
what?
You
just made that up.
No.
Dr. Seuss.
TOCILIZUMAB.
Toxlizumab.
Yeah, toxlizumab. That's what it's called. I didn't know nobody.
What is it? Dr. Seuss invented that drug, I'm sure.
Oh, the Dr. Seuss drug, it's an anti-interleukin 6.
Oh, wow.
Drug. It's an antibody that kills interleukin 6.
Oh, struth.
It has the worst side effects.
It would.
But it's approved for rheumatoid arthritis.
Oh, yeah.
So it's anti-inflammatory. So that's the immune thing. But when you release interleukin 6 from the muscles, they're anti-inflammatory.
What?
Yeah.
So is that because it comes out with other myokines?
Yeah, it is a myokine.
Yeah.
And there's a great paper on this, and I'll read this because people want a bit of science.
But interleukin 6 also comes out of fat cells.
Does too.
And contributes to insulin resistance and obesity.
Absolutely. And if mice are bred with interleukin 6 deficient receptors, they also become obese because interleukin 6 also increases thermogenesis.
Yeah, oh my goodness. Yeah.
So it's weird. So there's a great review paper called The Pro and Anti-Inflammatory Effects of Cytokine Interleukin 6. And you got to remember that this is the body being more clever than we think we are. And it kind of goes back to what you're saying. It's about, is interleukin 6 inflammatory or not? Yes and no. Depends where it's released and what receptors it activates, because there's a family of interleukin 6s. Yep. And so it's kind of like, is stress good or bad? Well, it can be either.
And that's the other thing too. Like one of these training techniques is like understanding that sympathetic nerve activation is what contributes to a lot of the lactic acid burn, a lot of your poor recovery, and the DOFs and the DOMs and that sort of stuff can often be associated with you training with angst and training in a stress nervous system, not training in the regeneration and repair mode. This technique that Ken does, it's almost like Tai Chi with a bit of resistance. Wow. It's a wildest crazy thing. And so with the corticotropin releasing hormone's another one I found interesting, because when I was learning about nerves and stress responses, well, actually when I was trying to work out why I sweat and get like flushed and that sort of stuff, I was trying to work out ways of blocking this thing called corticotropin releasing hormone. Yeah. Because it's a stress chemical released from nerve endings that can activate histamine responses and everything as well. Then activates the ACTH for the cortisol release from the adrenals.
Adrenocorticotrophic hormone, for those who want to know.
Yeah, but it's basically released from all these nerve endings simultaneously. So I can get a stress response. My brain can release the catecholamines to make me think and look off to the distance and all those stuff. Through my body, I can get these same nerve releases that create flushing reactions, the redness, the sweating, and all those sort of things. So there's a lot of biochemistry behind this concept that the body works without needing permission from the brain.
Well, exactly does.
And that all of these things, and you can't really separate the body into systems. You can't say gastroenterology and immunology and psychology is different, you know. So
it's a failure to think like that. And unfortunately, well, I can't speak for you. When I was trained, we did anatomy and we opened up the immune sort of page and learned about immunology and about white cells and all that shit. And then we closed the book and we turned about the nervous system. And yet they're so interrelated. Yeah. Like you mentioned corticotropin releasing hormone. There's a family of those chemicals. Yeah. And some of them are actually released in the skin and muscles. I mean, and that's corticotropin releasing factor. There's many of those sort of chemicals. It's called urocortin 2, which is a chemical that's corticotropin releasing factor. Yep. It's one of those families. And see, corticotropin releasing factor we thought was just in the limbic system in the brain that stimulates, as you say, ACTH. But now we know that there's these other families that stimulate are in the muscles. Yeah. And it has completely different effects.
So a lot of us can go through that manifest these physical symptoms of anything from allergy to intolerance to recurrent injuries to frozen shoulders, neck pain, headache, all this sort of weird sort of stuff. Gut problems, definitely digestive problems, sleep problems, sexual dysfunctions, all those sort of things. They all get switched off if your sympathetic nervous system is stuck in the on mode.
Yeah, absolutely,
and
it does.
In our brain, we might be able to convince ourselves that something's not life-threatening. And in fact, according to Ken, the people that have, like the extreme surfers, the extreme sports people, UFC fighters, power lifters, the people that can convince themselves or the people that say they don't actually feel fear, or they feel fear and do it anyway, they're the ones that hold the most defensive postures.
Yeah.
They're the ones that have basically used their brain to make their body do stuff. Their body then doesn't know that what's going on, so the body prepares for the worst. And if it doesn't ever get a chance to stop, recalibrate, or stop, collaborate and listen, or stop in the name of love, or what's the other stop? There'll be others. Anyway.
Don't Stop Me Now by Queen.
Stop. No, Hammer Time.
Oh, yeah, that's the one.
No, so if you don't stop and actually go back and ask your body what's going on at the moment, where are you sitting, what are you doing, and then remind your body this is where we need to be right now. You don't need to be in survival mode. You don't need to be in stress mode. You need to be able to relax and go through and recover and recalibrate. Then basically you can get further and further out of balance. One thing that can do is physical injuries and all that sort of stuff, but another thing that can do is be a constant stress back to your brain.
Absolutely.
It can be a constant stress back to your nervous system, and the sort of stress that someone might be taking supplements for, or the sort of stress that someone might be getting counselling for and wanting to talk about their childhood for and all that sort of stuff. But if you don't go back and have a look at your body, if you don't do the somato-psychic link, so we're all psychosomatic, you know. If we don't go back and do somato-psychic and go back and go, my body posture is out of whack. Not just pain, not just injuries, but my defensive posture is stuck. Then it is constantly sending signals back to your brain, just like you've put your hand on a hot plate and done it. So that same concept that bang, hot plate, stress, remove, react, and then the brain picks that stress signal. The brain then can go, yeah, it's cool, your hand's off now, stop being a pussy, and, you know, like move on with life. Well, if you don't ever go back and say to your body, okay, we're safe now. It's okay to say it to your brain, but if your body doesn't actually manifest that safe posture and go back and remind the brain that, yes, we are safe. I'm sitting back on my heels. I'm in a vulnerable position. I'm safe. My center of gravity is even. I have no need to frown. Why the hell would I be frowning to think? And my traps can let go. Like, man, it was so crazy, the amount of... I couldn't do hamstring exercises without my quads wanting to take over. I couldn't do chest exercises without my traps wanting to take over. It was crazy. No wonder I had all these frozen shoulders and bad hips and stuff. Now, when you get onto the, if you have a look at Ken's YouTube channel and that sort of stuff.
I did. That's fascinating.
And when you read a lot of the papers, he's published some cool papers, and they all sound very complicated. And when you get onto the webpage and watch a YouTube, a lot of people talk about the tremor therapy, they talk about the chaos therapy, and they talk about the, you know, the almost the seizures that occur with this. I need to explain to people my perception of that, you know, what I felt with that, because it's so different to what I thought it was going to be like. On the first day, I'm trying to recalibrate, and I found myself, what happens, so for example, just as an example, you get onto a pec deck. Okay, so we're just doing those. Which is a machine that does that. I'm doing it right now, Steve.
Oh, okay, good.
Can't you see?
I just wanted to show my chest.
Oh, geez, it's all about you and your muscles and your stupid eggs for breakfast. So anyway, get onto this pec deck machine. Close my eyes, no weight or hardly any weight, and just slowly trying to bring my hands together evenly.
And
so they
slowly
meet in the middle with no weight and extremely slow. And as I'm going, I'm trying to feel, am I even? Am I symmetrical? But what kept happening, one arm would go and the other arm would then catch up, and then it would take over. So my hemisphere, the dominance in my hemispheres were chopping and changing. I would frown and focus with intensity. My head would go down to the side. So constantly trying to realign me. Now, part of the therapy is also when you get to these sticky points, it's just about shaking it out. Okay, so we get to a spot that we're stuck. And then what we're trying to do is he encourages you to shake and tremor a little bit, like just build up a little bit of shake and a bit of noise and that sort of stuff there, and just allow the body to just be and feel and follow its thing and send messages back to the brain saying, okay, we've got a little bit of a sticky spot here or whatever. And now with that, that's not like an involuntary movement. Like you're not going into an involuntary tremor or seizure. It's you doing it, okay? So you do it. You're the one that's shaking it. You're the one that's doing it. I was waiting for these tremors to happen. You know, I was waiting for something. It took a while for these things to happen because I'm waiting for my body to seizure because I was watching YouTube videos. And I was watching this sort of stuff thinking, oh, man, these people go full seizures. And some people go like really full seizures. And other people just do a bit of a shake and a bit of a tremor. So basically what was happening, I was getting into those sort of situations. When he put me onto and I was fighting it, like to a certain degree, because I could feel these things and it would just fizzle out to nothing. And I'd start shaking and I go, yeah, okay, that feels fine now. And then I'd go back. But what was an interesting process is the understanding of these tremors and this shaking. When he put me onto the leg press machine and put me into a very vulnerable position for my hamstrings and adductors onto that, the tremoring was insane.
Right.
Fine with weight, but with no weight, trying to just have some control and have those signals going back, it started this shaking and this tremoring, okay? And that happens to a lot of people on leg press machine on leg days and things like that. When they're starting to lose a bit of that control, they can start to tremor. Well, what the difference was here is he wants you to build on that. So basically we went down onto the mat and I recreated that tremor in my legs. It was just a shaking. But the funny thing is, initially it was shaking. It was just like really high frequency shaking. And then the weird thing is it was all over the place. It was not symmetrical. It wasn't organized. It was just shaking. And then I felt, and he said, just go with it. Just if you feel like you want to shake up into your hips and just make it bigger, just keep building it, keep growing it. And as I was building it up and it was feeling it coming into my hips, I had this really dodgy spot on the bottom, just above my left hips. And then I could feel my whole body started shaking and the muscles around there really started to spasm. Not like a cramp. It definitely wasn't a cramp, but it was like a shake and it was pulling me to that direction and that sort of stuff. And it went really intense and then just kind of fizzed out. And then on the other side of my spine, because I pretty much alternate knots either side of my spine all the way up to my head, when I get a massage, it's like, it's like painful the whole way through. Yeah. And it just alternates. So I'm not walking around like this all day,
You sort of, it all balances
If you think about it, with your back, you get a bowl, your head's the weight of a bowling ball.
Yeah.
And if you put the bowling ball onto a broomstick or something, the length of your spine, and then you try to hold that down the bottom, that's bloody hard. Yeah. So your body's constantly adjusting to keep that center of gravity where it is. So my body was full of knots. So I went around to one spot and went to a ball and then it fizzed out and then it went to the other side, all the way up my spine. Incredible. What was interesting is one arm started tremor. I just felt that wanted to go. And then he's saying, cool, just let that go. And then he's going, but it's not symmetrical. See if you can bring it over to the other side. And I'm just waiting like nothing's happening. And he said, no, don't bring it. You do it. You get it.
Bring it, yeah.
And so next thing you know, my hands are shaking. So it would have looked like, if anyone filmed it, it would have looked like a tremor or a seizure or something like that. But it was me doing it. It was me amplifying it. But what would happen then is no two people do it exactly the same. Everyone has a different reaction. Next thing you know, these signals and these shaking and these tremoring start to become more controlled. They start to become more symmetrical. My legs were doing like, doing symmetrical things. My legs were doing that sort of stuff together. My arms started talking evenly. Anyway, a couple of days later, I go for a massage and someone runs their hands down the either side of my spine. Not one knot either side, just mush. Amazing. Both sides and straight as. Yeah. And like all those knots that I've been carrying around, been getting all different types of treatment, chiropractic, massage, physio, rehabs, all these different things. And none of those did anything. This in 4 days, it was all gone.
Strange.
I'll never forget the first time I went there was a girl there that had scoliosis, the curvature in the spine.
Yeah.
I knew you were going to say that.
Oh, yeah, just wondering, because people, I don't understand it. I mean, most people would know scoliosis.
She was going to get the rods implant and she'd been doing everything forever. And she went there for the last chance, whatever, we'll just do a bit and see.
Give it a go.
Within 5 days, perfectly straight.
Amazing.
He's got those people out of wheelchairs, which are great stories and that sort of stuff as well. John McLean, I think it was, he was in a wheelchair for 25 years.
It's a video on that too.
Yeah, and then he ended up walking on the beach a week later and doing Ironman triathlons a year later.
Yeah, and then he walked his daughter down the aisle. Was that someone else too?
Yeah, bugged if I know. I should read the book, I suppose. But so basically what happened with me is I went through and I shook all this sort of stuff out, and that was the second day for me. The first day was just trying to get my brain to stop frowning every time I closed my eyes, understand that I was crooked. The second day was my body trying to recalibrate everything. The third day when I went back in and did all those same exercises I did on the first day, man, I was smooth. It was like balanced.
Yeah.
So like these aren't things that you're stuck with. These aren't things that you got to do months and months of rehabilitation to strengthen up the bits. It's basically telling your body to just drop, recalibrating and understand where you are symmetrical, and understanding what triggers are pulling you out of
Right.
symmetry.
So it's sort of taking your brain out of the muscle connection.
And that was the hardest thing for me.
Right.
Because I was always in my brain. And man, like I was saying, I kept frowning. He said, why are you frowning all the time? I said, no, I've intensity. But I study with intensity. I read with intensity. I think hard, man. I'm I think aggressively. I think, I do things because I'm a thinker, you know. Like if I was to be a labourer, I'd probably labour with intensity.
Yes.
But I think with intensity, which is a much better option in in Queensland here and that, with the air-conned offices and everything.
Absolutely.
But so having these signals going back, but more importantly, now I've learnt, because I was having dinner with my family the other day, and we're all happy. There's no problems. Everything's great. And then the wife asked me why I was frowning, like what's the matter? And I said, oh, no, I'm good. And then I realised I was frowning. I went, oh, shit, yeah, I am too. So then I stopped the frown. I realised my traps up, dropped, got my posture. And I realised I was thinking about work. I just started daydreaming about work, and then that put me into that defensive posture. But then as soon as I realised that, I could go back and drop that defensive posture, and I totally forgot what I was thinking about. The stress wasn't even there. Like I went back into living in the now without having the sympathetic nervous system activated because of my posture.
And you talk about stress and why, and you know, we've talked a lot about it, why negative stress. Chemically, there are 3 chemicals that are released during stress: adrenaline, noradrenaline, or epinephrine, norepinephrine, depending on if you're in America, and cortisol. And the norepinephrine shuts down pretty much everything. It says, you know, survive this thing. So if you're stressed, like sitting there having dinner, you're not digesting, your thyroid's not working, and you could just be thinking of something. It's not like people think stress is a thing or something. It can come from here very easily.
Oh yeah, but even this, think about it this way then.
Yeah.
My defensive posture was driving that stress nervous system. Yeah. So you said that with our sympathetic nervous system, we get the catecholamines, the adrenalines and that sort of stuff. They then drive the HPA axis, which is the adrenal gland then releases the hormone cortisol. Yep. Now cortisol's job is not to make your stress worse. Cortisol's job is to actually go back and switch off our stress. Exactly. That's why it switches off the immune system, which could be your cause of stress. It switches off inflammation, that could be your cause of stress. Yes. It switches off the sympathetic nervous system itself. So it goes back. It's the fact that it's been released through negative feedback sends a message back to your hypothalamus and pituitary saying, we've had our stress response, let it go.
We've beaten the snake.
What if my defensive posture is still there?
Yeah.
So if I'm still getting signals from my body back to my brain saying, no, this guy's still in the defense, he's still in survival mode, there must still be some stress. Yeah. So if cortisol's going back to our brain saying, let it go, stop, relax, at the same time as the signal's coming through going, no, there's stress around, you should probably go, get up and run. You become resistant to your cortisol. So what happens then is the cortisol's been released. It is capable of switching off the inflammation or suppressing the immune system. It's capable of making body changes, switching off the thyroid, changing your gonadal hormones, preserving fat around your organs and breaking down your muscle and all those things we know bad with cortisol, holding salt, raising blood pressure, all those sort of things. But it's not switching off your survival nervous system because signals from your body are coming through saying, no, you should probably go anyway.
Yes, exactly.
And so what happens is if you go through and you're doing taking your CortRx and you're taking your magnesiums and you're doing your meditation with intensities and you're doing all this sort of stuff, if you're still holding a defensive posture through that whole process, there's still a signal going back, no, just release a bit more cortisol.
It's amazing because the signal coming from the body to the brain, not the other way around, which is what, you know, when I was taught, it was about, the stress comes from here and tells your body. But you're saying that the body can tell the brain that it's stressed. And that's key. Because
and it doesn't have to be a hot plate.
No.
It doesn't have to be inflammation or pain specifically. It doesn't have to be a bite or a venom or any of those sort of things that our nervous systems are designed to deal with. It could actually be your posture. It could be the way you lock in your traps. It could be the way you sit forward. It could be the way you're not in a centered, balanced place. Now, if you're going to see your personal trainers and expecting a certain amount of results from all your training, you need to understand your posture. You need to understand how to do it. And if your personal trainer is there motivating you and firing you up and getting you excited and going, right, now we're going to do really hardcore weights, we're going to hurt you, it's leg day, look out, it's leg day. You know? Like if there's all that sort of stuff happening, for someone that's not capable of understanding their posture and isolating the muscles they're trying to work, they might be doing all these stupid exercises with intensity and aggression and doing themselves more harm than good, manifesting a lot of survival responses, creating a lot of injuries, creating unnecessary pain and inflammation, all that sort of stuff manifesting survival. Now, a personal trainer that's in touch with their body, that understands, they talk about muscle-mind connection all the time, they know how to isolate the muscles, they know that the traps shouldn't be involved in a chest exercise, those sort of things. They know how to get their frame right. Like even simple things, like when Ken was teaching me to do bench press, how to create, nothing was a chest exercise, everything was a whole body exercise. Understanding that you've got to build that frame, you've got to hold that box, you've got to be safe, you've got to be secure, and then push from there. And that actually, a lot of it too is just then closing your eyes and understanding where you are. Now, Ken's done a lot of studies where they connect people up to like ECGs and that sort of stuff and sit in another room. And when people are doing this properly, he can't tell if they're doing the lifting phase or the lowering phase. He shouldn't know where you are in an exercise. It should not change. There shouldn't be throw things up and then drop it down. It's all about this control. It's supposed to be smooth transitions. Like we imagine that flock of birds and that sort of stuff. So the body doesn't move rigid. The body doesn't, in nature, the body moves freely. There's none of these rules, that we're stuck with, like you're saying, with school and that sort of stuff. So
it's not natural. It's so funny because Ken's paper, he's published some medical papers here, and he talks about terms that I've highlighted here called biodirectional, which is what I love. It's about how you can come from there, but it can go back to there too. I love that too. It's called the reverse transitional psychological hypothesis is what he's called it.
So it's a foot up.
A foot up. So it's funny because you've got to remember that when orthodox medicine is all about teaching the brain to teach your body to do this sort of stuff. And so, it's completely unique. Yeah. And he talks about tremorless and chaotic behaviours as a treatment.
Yeah.
Well,
I tell you, a lot of it started with quadriplegics.
Yes.
So and that same bloody pec deck. Now this is normal gym equipment, but he uses the synergy stuff. It's really smooth and it's got a lot of unilateral sort of opportunities there. But he started off with putting a quadriplegic on the pec deck just to do their normal rehab and notice their legs moving.
Yes.
Now, I mean, Ken might tell a different version of the story, but this is my recollection of what he told me. Yeah. He noticed that the legs would tremor when they're trying to use their arms. And these people say, oh, no, we normally medicate to stop those spasms. That's just an electrical charge build up and things like that. And like I would be and most other people say, your legs are moving, You can walk. Like, exactly. Yeah. Like I put you on a pec deck and now you're going to walk, And these people going, oh, no, that's just normal spasms. That's weird electrical charges. So anyway, what he started doing is putting resistance on that. So take away some of that noise and that sort of stuff, and that build up a little bit of tone. And then next thing you know, they could notice patterns. So they could see actual patterns when they move their arms, their legs are moving. But then it's always the brain saying, move. Yeah, but there's no, that's been severed. Yeah. So when they could go through and get the feet coming back to the brain saying, no, we're still here. There's a break somewhere along the line, but we're still here. And there's other evidence of animals, cats and things like that have had broken backs and worked out other ways of creating neural networks around the injury and that sort of stuff. So there's a lot of other, when we don't know and when we're not bound by rules and belief systems and things like that, it's capable for the body to do remarkable things. And the body can then go back and explain where it's gone wrong and what's gone wrong and create new networks.
It's quite incredible. I mean, when you gave me this paper this morning and when you were giving this talk, I was not very familiar with how all this works and how it actually works. And I got to one of Ken's papers and he doesn't know how it all works, but it does work. So I love that honesty. He doesn't make up quantum something and I hear that word, it's quantum metaphysical or something. It's like that, doesn't know. And that's honest science.
But he's collected so much data because he's under so much scrutiny. And he presents at a lot of these things. He goes to these international conferences and presents to these full-on experts. I mean, he might get heckled out of the room by standard PT or a physio or something like that believes that these things aren't possible. But he's not saying he knows how it works. He's just reporting his observations. He does the gait analysis, so he records all the gait analysis. We do the thermal imaging scanning as well, so we could see the red collar where my traps were working and giant blue boobs when I'm trying to do chest exercises, just until the networks connect, and then all of a sudden the heat distributes evenly.
Yeah,
what are
amazing.
you laughing at, my big blue boobs?
Blue boobs, yeah.
That was a really funny video.
I didn't think that would ever come out in the podcast, blue boobs, but it did. So
No, they did. They were cold blue boobs, and I had bright red collar.
Hey.
I look like some superhero. It was amazing.
There you go. Hey, Superman has the red capes coming out of the
Yeah, pretty much. That's probably what I was like, the big blue
that's
boobs.
exactly. I was just thinking that.
Yeah. So
he also talks about, I love this, he says the slow speeds roll that you mentioned, he actually says 2.5 centimetres per second, or an inch a second if you're in America. The slow speeds roll for the central nervous system is like a good mechanic listening to an engine's idling state. At slow speeds, imbalances are detectable.
Yeah.
So that's why he does the slow
and little
speed.
things, as we're going, for example, you just feel that one arm stopped and the other one kept going, or you just hit a sticky spot and your body adjusts, like you'll find a little kink, and you go back to that spot and, hey, do that again. That was a bit weird. You go back to it, and it does that weird adjustment every time. So you go back to that spot and you just shake all your body. Okay, does it go through smooth now? Yeah, it does. Okay. And then we find another little weird spot, and then we kind of shake that out, and then we move through that. And basically you do through that through the whole body, and then you kind of allow this tremor to go and try to involve the whole body to recalibrate and then out again. And now I've got these. I'll tell you some weird stuff though, because
I want weird stuff.
Because it for me, man, it wiped my muscle memory to the point that when I left the clinic. I left his clinic and I went to go to my phone to put in Google Maps of where I was going, and I couldn't remember my code. Because there's a lot of things that my body remembers that my brain hasn't bothered to remember, like pins and passwords.
Yes.
And I forgot them. And I'm sitting there going, I had no idea. I'm just sitting there straight. I don't even actually know the numbers of my password. My fingers used to know where to press, but I actually forgotten it. And I was like, oh, shit. I had to actually go back and try to, I was about to say what my password was. But I had to go back and remember the code and try to put it in. And then I went to get money out, which again is another 4-digit code. And I couldn't remember that at first. Hey, I had to go back and really rack my brain to think about what it was, because my body had just decided to take on to that muscle memory.
Yes.
And and even little things too, because I was walking really badly, and like I said, I couldn't stand still. I was constantly wobbling and adjusting because of the hips and whatever. I don't know. And that's a cool thing. We don't even bother trying to explain it. We just go, this is just a thing. And then anyway, so then I had to kind of remember how to walk again. I kind of went down to the beach, and I was down there, and the beach was good because it's not, you can be barefoot, you can be, and your body can be fluid,
Yes.
But heading down, it felt like I was seasick. When you're on a boat and you get off the boat and your body's kind of, that's what I felt a little bit. And then I'd just go through, and then I, acquired a bit of a strut, like getting a bit of rhythm back to my walking instead of that clunking, stomping thing and pain that I had.
Intensity walk.
Yeah, the intense walk with purpose, so people don't talk to you.
It's funny because you talk about phones, muscle memory, and let's say it's 1, 2, 3, 4. A phone would be 1, 2, 3, 4.
How did you know my button?
Oh, genius. Then it's that, and it's like, when I play guitar, I'm doing it for over 30 years, and if someone said, okay, what's an A chord, I just do that shape, and that's an A chord.
Yeah.
I don't think about it. I can sing, I can talk, I can do everything with it. But then someone said, what when you're in the studio and saying, oh, what's that chord? And you go, oh, that's, hang on. And you look at your hand and you're going, what are you doing? You have to, I don't know what I'm doing with my hand.
Yeah,
it's separate to my body, this left hand, and this one's strumming and this one's pushing here. And you don't know. You go, what shape? Oh, that's right. That's it. Oh, okay.
So imagine someone that's been training in the gym for years. They've been doing this sort of stuff. They just do the same thing. So they go in, and no, I'm going to do it with intensity because I need to build more muscle, burn more fat. But their body's not going back, reassessing and listening to what they're doing. We become creatures of habit.
Yes.
And our body can be doing these things, and our brain can be thinking it's under control of all this sort of stuff. Meanwhile, our body's just doing whatever the bloody hell it likes. Now I've frozen shoulders totally freed up. All these pain is gone. Everything's even. But also, more importantly, I know when I'm getting out of balance. I can then recalibrate. I can stop. When I go through stress now, I can't stop stress affecting me. I can't stop this, but at the end of it, I can go back and recalibrate and make sure I'm not holding that stressful posture into my next activity. If that makes sense. So, in seminars, I did that seminar the other night. I got a bit of a sweat up. I was still a little bit funny. I was much calmer because whenever I felt myself frowning and doing those sort of things, I could change my posture back. But at the end of it, I just go back and redo these training techniques and reset my body.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of stress off, you know?
It's amazing because one thing I know about stress is that different things stress different people. I hate shopping, but doing seminars, I like them. I don't get stressed. I like it. It's fun. It's enjoy. I like doing with you, and we have fun doing it. But I honestly do not know you were that stressed.
Yeah.
I know you get a bit anxious, like we all do. We got to think, we got to mention this, and you've read a paper on it. You got to talk about this and that and inflammation, and whatever else. But I didn't know it stressed you the way it did.
Yeah, that's why the IT part of it stresses me out the most, because if the laptop's not working or something, that triggers a sympathetic nerve response, which amplifies where my body's already at, adds on top of it. But without that, I can just go gut instincts, intuition, long-term memory. I don't even care what the slides say because I'm going to be dizzy and not reading them anyway.
Oh, okay.
But so that's it. And I think this style of treatment too, it's waste. Like mainly 80% of the work is quadriplegics and stuff like people that the really messed up cases. These people that have been everywhere, tried everything. But I think the people that really would benefit from it would be athletes, ones that have convinced themselves they're fine, but they know there's something holding them back. Yeah. Because man, imagine the improvements in efficiency with your power output if you're not having antagonist muscles activated when you're trying to push something. You don't have the muscles that are involved in pulling, holding back on your pushing. If you're an elite athlete, but also people that have override the fear. They feel the fear but do it anyway, but don't have a way of recalibrating. Entrepreneurs, business people, those guys that are hustling and grinding and trying to dominate, they need to go back and recalibrate and do these sort of things and understand that their body can get so knotted and out of whack. That's how we create little pockets of hate, little pockets of resentment that can turn into nasty cancers and all those sort of things and major injuries. So people need to go and stop, switch off, recalibrate their body, get away from the angst, get away from the intensity. Otherwise, their body is constantly stressed. Yes. Their immune system then suppressed. Their muscles aren't developing as well as they could be. They're holding fats and fluids. You're not going to achieve the most amazing things.
I know. You mentioned the antagonistic muscle, and if you do a bicep curl,
I knew you wanted to do his bicep. Look at this.
I haven't got a good bicep, so I can't.
You need more eggs.
I'm not going to show. I'm going to get up and show my legs. That'd be worse. But I've got no calves, shit calves. So the triceps, the three muscles here, push it that way, and that relaxes. But what Matt's saying, if this is not relaxing and you're trying to do that, then it's like driving with a handbrake on.
Yeah, exactly.
All the time.
If you're a CrossFitter, if you're an elite athlete, if you're a power lifter and stuff like that, you want to be making sure that you're recruiting your resources properly and definitely not wasting energy on something that's slowing you down.
Exactly.
And so that's where this thing could benefit so many more people. I mean, and I wasn't going to go because I felt bad that there was people that needed it. But I'm so glad I went. But I think other people, and personal trainers out there can learn this too. This is a system. It's not even it's not magic. Yeah. It's a system of just assessing, recalibrating, monitoring, helping people understand their body. So personal trainers can go to the Neurophysics Institute webpage and find out how to do different little modules of it. Exactly. And it can be the simplest. You can take it to whatever level you like, I suppose. But there's some aspects in here that you could do, teach you. It's almost like, for example, if I was a personal trainer looking for something to add in, like you already know all these exercises, you know how to use the machines, you can go and do this and get another little trick to understand how to actually switch off the things that are holding these people back. I know in my experience in the naturopath clinic, I spent more time looking for the handbrakes than looking for ways of making them push the throttle harder. Exactly. Most people try hard. Like most people are trying hard. Half the time you're sitting there going, man, give yourself a break. Let's just find some handbrakes that we can remove because you're doing all the hard work. Let's see how far you go forward.
We're talking about this from information. I'm not getting commission from Ken or you.
No, hopefully I get another bloody treatment.
Yeah. But we're not on commission.
We're going to have Ken come to our summit. We're doing a summit in October this year, 2019, for the people that might be listening to this in the future. Where will that be?
Can we start promoting it yet? Or?
Oh, I think it's Gold Coast.
Gold Coast, yeah.
Don't even know when. But anyway, it'll be around Gold Coast. It'll be a nice weekend, beautiful weather, and come up and do it. But Ken's going to be there. We're going to try to get his mate, Jeff Erickson's got the heat signature stuff as well, so we can actually do some proper workshops with all this sort of stuff. But otherwise, you can look up Ken. But I reckon everyone should do it because, like I said, I did it for 1 week and I've learned tricks for the rest of my life. So
Awesome.
Yeah, go see him. But I reckon if I was a personal trainer and I was looking for something to add, I mean, legally, personal trainers in Australia aren't allowed to talk about food and nutrition anymore.
They're not allowed to legally.
So they're not allowed to talk about supplementation.
Nope.
They're not allowed to talk about this.
That's
so they
true.
can actually add this as a skill set to them to actually help people understand their body better.
Well,
Because I see it now that I'm aware of it.
Yeah.
I see these people in the gym, and especially the people that aren't real confident in the gym. The new people, the people that are doing it for the reasons because they think they need to punish themselves because they let themselves
Yeah.
get out of shape, or
Yeah.
even injuries. Like I used to try to rehabilitate my injuries with such angst. It's just like, yeah, get better, the pain, that's good pain.
Pain
It's
is
crazy,
weakness
huh?
leaving the body.
What?
Pain is weakness leaving the body. That's a famous saying.
That is a famous saying.
Who said it?
I'm bugged if I know. I thought you just said it.
No, well, yeah, I made it up. Yeah, no, I don't. It's someone.
Pain is resistance to change, Steve.
It is.
What's another pain?
Pain?
Anyway, don't matter.
Doesn't matter. No pain, no gain. That's
Well, I
right.
think, is there any... So basically, there's plenty of science
Yeah.
in regards to the chemistry, but what underlines all chemistry is physics.
Yes.
And there's plenty of evidence of the physics to talk about electromagnetic fields and changes and our body working in unison and the reflexes associated with our body in regards to survival happening well and truly before the brain even knows that there's a stress signal there. There's heaps of evidence in there to show that this thing has some merit, but once you experience it, and the reason why I want to do this podcast as well is I didn't want to... A lot of people watch I tell them to go watch this YouTube video and they go, oh man, that's a bit freaky for me. There's people like having seizures and tremors and all that sort of stuff. And I'm like, man, it's not like that. I said, it's when you're in amongst it, you're kind of doing it. You're in total control at any moment. You can stop, you can pull it out. They're I don't know what that was. They're communicating with you the whole time, encouraging you where to go. And it's not like an involuntary tremor, seizure. Well, it kind of is, but it isn't. It's almost like, when people say they get hypnotized, they know they're doing it, but they can't stop themselves doing it.
Yeah.
So like with this, it's like that. You got to do it yourself. You've got to be cooperating with them to do it. And you've got to be allowing yourself to be vulnerable and in those space and allow that to happen.
Good.
But it is a conscious thing that you're doing it. Yeah, it's not a...
Wow.
Yeah, it's not like, well, what
Wild
happened?
stuff.
I don't remember. Oh, yeah, no, man, it is. And I
Wild
recommend anyone does it. We'll put the details somewhere.
Great. Well, it's here somewhere.
I just looked at
Is
Vanessa
there-
then going, I'm sure you'll work that out.
Yeah,
Just get
yeah,
your
yeah.
people to talk to my people.
Yes, exactly. It'll be a nice thing along the bottom there. But look, is there anything else you want to talk before we wrap this up? Because we're a bit over time.
Oh, stop you bitching about the time.
Okay. Yeah, you haven't got any meetings to follow this
Yeah,
podcast?
no, don't worry about that. They can wait, man. Don't stress me over time.
I
See,
know.
my posture comes up. I started frowning. I rolled onto the balls of my feet.
That's
I ate
it.
eggs for brekkie, mate.
Eggs for brekkie.
No, all right. What are you doing now?
Awesome. Well, we've really run out of time now.
Oh, stop whinging about the time, Steve.
Well, they're on the treadmill. They're on the treadmill.
No,
They're sweating. But look, this has been fun. This has been an eye opener for me. This is a topic
Stop
I don't know much
waffling
about.
now. Just
I know,
say
I'm just
goodbye.
summarising. Oh, just summarising. This has been an awesome podcast for me. I've enjoyed it. But thanks for listening, everybody, and watching if you're watching. But Matt, it's been awesome. Thanks for picking this
Steve.
one.
All right, nice one. All right.
See you later, guys.
This is a really shit start to a podcast. We're just waffling crap. Should we
I
just
know.
start again and make it a bit more exciting?
Okay. Welcome to the